First the Delta variant, then the high gas and food prices, and now Afghanistan has fallen to the Taliban. I didn't think being a president was so hard. Maybe I should have thought critically about what I wanted to do instead of running my whole campaign trying to go out here and spite Donald Trump. But this is what happens when you go out here and vote on feelings instead of facts. Ah! Man, I have fucked this shit up.
Now available for pre-order on Kindle. Stop Simping in Cyberspace. Learn how to avoid predatory females in their virtual con games with Stop Simping in Cyberspace. Pre-order your copy of Stop Simping in Cyberspace on Kindle today.
This weekend, the nation of Afghanistan fell into the hands of the Taliban. Now, your Biden administration had been working on a plan for U.S. forces to leave the country by September 11th and hand power over to the government that was established back in 2001. Unfortunately, as your U.S. forces were leaving, the Taliban began to advance, and as they began to advance in 4 days, they were able to take control over the entire country. Now, the fall of Afghanistan is a major blemish on U.S. foreign policy and is considered by many to be a major blow to the Biden administration. Now, the Biden administration said that, again, they wanted to go out here and leave Afghanistan because they wanted to end what they considered to be an endless war, but the way things ended wound up leaving a major black eye on Joe Biden's foreign policy. Now, the whole complete implosion of Afghanistan seems to be another part of what I call the Biden implosion. Now, this Biden implosion has been going on over the entire month of August, and it started with the surge of COVID-19 all across the country after a decision by his CDC to tell Americans to take off their masks and to tell them that they could go out here and because they thought COVID was under control. That was the first part of the Biden implosion. The second part was the continuing surging Biden inflation as related to gas prices and grocery items, and we're now experiencing another part of the Biden implosion with foreign policy. And it's clear that your Joe Biden, after taking over for Donald Trump, looks like he's losing more and more control over the direction of his agenda. And instead of him running the country, it seems like the country is running him, because after the fall of Afghanistan, your Joe Biden and his press secretary, Jen Psaki, was nowhere to be found, and they have not been able to make a statement regarding this complete foreign policy disaster, which is a complete embarrassment to the United States. Now, Afghanistan seems to be the latest country to fall after a U.S. intervention. Now, the first major debacle for the United States was during the 1960s, after the Vietnam War proved to be very unpopular with the young people in America. Now, the Vietnam War had gone on for nearly over a decade, and many people were fed up with that war because they saw that American soldiers were losing their lives for absolutely no reason, because the people of Vietnam had done nothing to the American people, but Americans were coming to that country because they wanted to go out here and bring democracy to people. That was the proposal from your Eisenhower and Lyndon Johnson, who escalated the war as the civil rights movement was going on to disproportionately go out here and recruit black soldiers to fight in the Vietnam War. However, many of the young white male and female kids out there and their parents did not want to send their kids to fight and be drafted into that Vietnam War. And the whole thing with Vietnam was it was falling apart because the U.S. government had established its own government. Unfortunately, many of the people did not support that government. And after the family that was supposed to be established as the Vietnam government wound up getting assassinated, that's when the war turned into a quagmire, and this quagmire wound up leading to your Lyndon Johnson's approval rating dropping like a rock, and your Lyndon Johnson not being able to run for president for another term. And after that, your Richard Nixon tried to develop a plan to get Americans out of Vietnam because the war was unpopular and the goals of bringing democracy to people were a complete failure. And when we look at pictures of your Saigon, which fell in 1975, and your Kabul, which fell in 2021, they practically mirror each other and show how badly U.S. foreign policy failed. Now, the main reason why your U.S. foreign policy failed was because your people were not fighting for their own freedom. And as somebody who has been bullied, I can tell you, if you don't fight for your own freedom, you don't value anything being done for you. Because one of the traits that your weaker children, when they don't go out here and fight for themselves, they expect others to fight for them. And when others fight for you, they really aren't fighting for you. So they are fighting to defend you so that they can take advantage of you. And that's what probably happened with Afghanistan, and that's what happened with Vietnam. But the Vietnamese understood that this person was not fighting for them, and they fought back. But in Afghanistan, the people were so beaten down that they didn't even want to fight back, even after having an entire country built up for them. They didn't want to fight back, and that was the saddest part about Afghanistan, is that America spent over 20 years to go out here and fight for another person's country, but those people never learned how to fight for their own country. Now, some people want to try to blame people like George W. Bush and your Dick Cheney for this mess. Others want to blame Barack Obama for this mess, or Donald Trump. Now, your George W. Bush did start that war in Afghanistan as a way to create a legacy for himself, because he was trying to stop Osama bin Laden, but he never really set a series of concrete goals as related to capturing bin Laden, nor did he set a series of goals or a direction for what he was going to do with that country. No, instead, he focused on Saddam Hussein and weapons of mass destruction, and took us away from what was supposed to be accomplished or achieved with Afghanistan. And after your George W. Bush wound up getting kicked out of office, he didn't get his term ended, he just wound up leaving it to Barack Obama, who left the entire Afghanistan region in a sad state of affairs, which allowed for the rise of your Islamic State terrorist organization in Iraq and Syria, and allowed Afghanistan to just barely falter as contractors made lots of money at the expense of the Afghan people. And as your Donald Trump came in, and I don't like Donald Trump at all, he did try to come up with a plan to end this ongoing, almost 18-year-old war that was going nowhere because nobody had set a series of goals. Unfortunately, Donald Trump's plans, which involved multiple countries trying to take over the Afghan region and help it out, were undermined by your Joe Biden, who was caught up in his feelings about Donald Trump. And because he was caught up in his feelings about Donald Trump, he was not thinking critically about the situation, and he wound up changing a lot of policies as related to the whole Afghan situation. Because again, your Donald Trump negotiated a deal with many of the Middle Eastern countries to try to work with the Taliban. Unfortunately, your Joe Biden wound up renegotiating that deal and wanted to exit the country on a symbolic date of September 11th. And because he wanted to exit the country on the symbolic date of September 11th, 2021, the 20th anniversary of the fall of the Twin Towers, he wound up creating a plan that would have, again, like with the July 4th date, which would have symbolized the end of COVID-19, would wind up symbolizing the end of U.S. occupation in Afghanistan. And it seems like all of this symbolism is one of the things that undermines the Biden presidency in the last 8 months, because his focus on symbolic dates leads to him winding up not being able to meet the goal. Unfortunately, this is what happens when you plan unrealistically and see things from a rose-colored reality. You don't really think critically about what you need to do, and you don't really set goals. Your Biden was more focused on celebration with symbolic dates than focusing on meeting the goal of ensuring that the Afghan people would have their safety taken care of by other Arab nations, and that these other Arab nations would keep these Taliban in check. No, what your Joe Biden did was abandon the Afghan people, leave them to themselves, and left them to suffer at the hands of the Taliban, which resurged with great power, taking resources as they went, taking cities as they went. And it was really sad to see, after 20 years of U.S. investment and trillions of dollars, the entire nation fall in 4 days. And what was even sadder was that your Joe Biden was nowhere to be found as this was going on. He never addressed the American people, and he acted like it just didn't matter. But it does matter, because it shows a complete failure of leadership when your president is nowhere to be found, when a country you and several presidents have invested in is practically taken in less than 4 days. I mean, the most technologically advanced country in the world, the United States, was supposed to be able to stop this kind of thing from happening, but we see for all their technology, they weren't able to stop people who already knew the land from taking the land. So that really mirrors what happened with your Vietnam, when the U.S. tried to intervene there, and they thought because they had their jets, they had their bombs and their missiles, they could easily take Vietnam. Unfortunately, the people of Vietnam were more resilient, and because they knew the territory, were able to fight for their country and keep the U.S. out of their country. And they were able to do this long enough that they could sway public opinion and turn people away from the generals and their agenda. And what's happened with Afghanistan, it mirrors it the same way. These Taliban forces, they knew the layout of the land, and they were able to take that land. And moreover, they were able to get American resources and enrich themselves at America's expense. So this is a major black eye for the Biden presidency. And while your news networks will try to spin it and say that it's Donald Trump's fault, at the end of the day, Joe Biden was the one in charge. He was the one who changed your Donald Trump's policies, because he was in his feelings about his party losing to Donald Trump. And he was the one who created this failed situation that led to this nation's government winding up failing and winding up being overtaken. But many on the left don't want to talk about how bad it is for Afghanistan to fall, because it makes them look bad. But we're seeing in August that we're in the middle of the Biden implosion, and this implosion is one that could have ramifications in 2022, because most Americans are going to realize that we need to check this left majority before it winds up taking America off the road of trying to rebuild after the pandemic. Because again, your Joe Biden stated that those 300,000 Afghan soldiers would be able to protect Afghanistan, but it doesn't look like they were able to protect anything, because it seems like they had, even though they were given all this training, they were not given support. Some of them even say they weren't paid. And because there was no support for helping those soldiers, and we approached them from the same paternalistic fashion we did in Vietnam, it looks like we got the same result. And sadly, most people are not looking at this whole aspect of the Biden presidency and seeing it as the same type of failure that undermined the Johnson administration and derailed the Nixon administration. And this whole situation here is, again, an embarrassment to America, because we don't really take a critical look at ourselves and see how history is repeating itself. Now, most of these politicians are so caught up in their Trump obsession and so caught up in their feelings about Donald Trump that they cannot think critically about what's going on here as related to Afghanistan, and understand that this is a major black eye for America on the global stage. It shows that America's leadership is weak. It shows that America has no direction as related to foreign policy, and America is in a really bad place. And again, we've had 3 presidents under this whole thing as related to Afghanistan, and they're coming across like the 3 stooges. And this is, again, this Biden implosion is something that I am seeing going on as we speak, but nobody in mainstream media will talk about this complete implosion of domestic policy, this complete implosion of foreign policy, and this complete implosion as related to the pandemic, and how he can't get a handle on things. And the reason why he can't get a handle on things is because they are still caught up in their Trump obsession, and because they have Donald Trump on the brain, they can't think critically and objectively about navigating a course for America over the next 4 years. Now, this video is not going to be monetized because of YouTube's policies, and if you could donate to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App, it would be greatly appreciated. Or if you could pick up one of my books on Amazon.com, that would go a long way in helping to support the channel. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.
Coming to paperback and e-readers, E-Steam Cancel Vacation. Hell's aspiring angel takes on a social justice social media mob looking to cancel her in this all-new E-Steam series adventure. Pre-order E-Steam Cancel Vacation on Amazon.com today.